Well, my first guest joins me in studio, Mr. Sterling Scott. He is the CEO of Growlife Incorporated. PHOT is their stock symbol. Sterling, good to see you again.
Good to see you, Don.
Now, we're very excited that we're reinitiating coverage of the company. Of course, you're a company that's operating in the legal cannabis space. Let's face it, you've been one of the most talked about bulletin board companies in the last year. Can you give us a general overview?
Three quick points. Growlife is a very fast-growing company, fully SEC reporting, and we're engaged principally in the technology and the infrastructure side of legal cannabis. Over the last 18 months or so, I think we've grown our business into roughly a 300 million market cap company, which has caused a great deal of attention. And the other point I would make is that substantially all of our revenue comes from our engagement with the business of legal cannabis in the United States.
Well, now, you've mentioned on the program before, because we've been covering you for more than a year, that there's been all these changing attitudes, both socially and governmentally, towards marijuana and cannabis. So what's the latest on that?
Well, I think it hasn't gotten a lot of coverage, and it may be a little bit racy for me to say as a CEO of a public company, but I think the most interesting development is President Obama having gotten on television, I think it's roughly 6 weeks ago, on two separate occasions, and expressing a view that at least in his opinion, from his own experience, life experience, that legal cannabis is not a whole lot different than consumption of alcohol, which is quite an extraordinary development from the most important Democrat in the United States, a person who I personally have a huge amount of respect for. But that's not really the story. The story is the one that sits right underneath that. We had those momentous events, it's my opinion, but the really stunning thing that happened in our industry is that in the 6 weeks after President Obama appeared in public on the subject, we haven't heard from the Republicans. Nothing. It's like you could hear a pin drop. That, I believe, if you look back over the last 2 years, is the most extraordinary political development as regards legal cannabis in our country.
Well, I think you're absolutely right, and we've seen so many developments occur since then. Of course, the Attorney General's office opened up banking to the cannabis markets. That's a significant event. Now, you've got something that's called the Growlife Infrastructure Funding and Technology Program. The acronym, of course, for that is GIFT. Tell us about that.
GIFT is a program that we conceived about a year ago, and we've been implementing it. We recently announced a deal with a Aspen, Colorado-based dispensary where we are. It's a fairly complicated program, but essentially the core of it is that we're allowing, just like power companies do. We're allowing customers to pay over time to repay us for infrastructure that we provide to them to grow cannabis. Can I come back just for a second, Don, to
yeah, absolutely.
To the political events? They're extraordinary. What I think a lot of investors don't understand. When I got involved in this 2 years ago, there's all this political risk. Marijuana companies could be gone tomorrow. The government could change its mind. The party could change. But you know what? That political, on a big scale, that political risk is pretty much gone.
Yeah.
It's about helping people, and gentlemen like Dr. Sanjay Gupta, in a recent CNN presentation, explaining more of the medical side. That's what it's about.
You're right.
It's not and I may be wrong, again, it's an opinion, but I think most of the political risk that used to be what I would think about all the time, I think it's essentially gone.
Well, we've certainly come a long way from 75 or 80 years ago in the movie Reefer Madness to what we're seeing today. It's a complete shift in attitudes, as I mentioned, both socially and from the government's perspective. And I want to bring you back to the gift
Yes, sir.
program, because that is such an important thing, because
It
that
is.
really allows your company to get into different aspects of revenue operations and opportunities, doesn't it?
It's a big mover for us, and it's very important. You know, one of the things we've used the ability to provide infrastructure with a certain amount of cooperation on the credit side. We're using it to a very large extent to allow us to lock in really the very best customers and a supply relationship with them for something like 3 to 5 years. And you know, it's longevity. It's, you know, we see this as a business that is only going to continue to grow in this country, and we want as many positions as we can. We have at any given time, lately at least, as many as 10 to 20 of those types of transactions in consideration. They range in size from approximately, on average, maybe 500,000 in revenue to Growlife to maybe up to 5 million each transaction. So they're material in the aggregate to us. So I appreciate your taking me back to that. It's a difficult program to explain, but we're working at it.
Well, it is really fascinating. Now, when we had a little teaser phone call with you last week, we looked at a chart of your growth in the stock in just really in 2014, which was really remarkable. But my question to you now is, with everything that has happened in the last 18 months, what do you see moving forward, say, for the next 12 to 18 months in the company?
On your show, maybe, in one of my early appearances on the show, I let you know that, and it was a risk on my part, that I thought there was an opportunity for the good companies, one or more of them, to really get into the billion-dollar market cap territory and move on to the major exchanges. And I think that timetable, I'd like to think Growlife has those kinds of legs under it. If we all execute well, I believe we do. And much of that, I think, is we expect to become part of mainstream business in America. And it's underway. And I think that's what you see when you look at our stock chart. You see people saying, wow, these are things that are real, they're going to be here, and they may not be Morgan Stanley investment grade, but I can see that they will be in a couple of years, and we'd like to be one of those companies.
Well, I think in that same show, we showed the cover of Fortune magazine that said marijuana, Incorporated, right. So it's completely changed. Against Growlife Incorporated, PHOT is the stock symbol. Sterling, just fabulous. Thanks so much.
It's always a pleasure, Don. Thank you.